I think this one will be a little bit of a shorter one. We're talking about I believe you pronunciate it, Ohn'ahran Plains. Uh, they probably said it in game and I just didn't hear it, but uh, I was hesitant to do this one because I was trying to find some redeeming qualities about the zone, and I don't mean that. I tend to tune out when someone has a negative opinion about something just because if I'm not there to learn, I'm just there to have fun. And lately, I found that when I surround myself with too much negative content, negative energy, negative perspective, it tends to sour my experience overall or my outlook. So I didn't want to do that with this video. So I'll start by saying that this intro where they're explaining as you're going from town to town, um, they're explaining who they are, their importance to the land, and the history, I guess, of their people. I understand the characters they were trying to portray in this area, and it was interesting, and it had a lot of potential. This reminded me of I believe it was Aldum, and I believe the Volpera quest as well, which also takes place in Aldum. I think when you first go to the Aldum zone in Cataclysm, and when you do the Volpera quest, it's similar, where you're riding something, and they're sort of guiding you through, setting up the storyline for you. This is a really clever way to transition from area to area throughout the zone. I really like that. The zone itself was spectacular. It was beautiful. It reminded me a lot of Storm Song Valley or something. Not maybe, I don't know. It was in Battle for Azeroth. It was the hilly one for Alliance. That wasn't Drustvar and it wasn't Tierguard Sound or whatever that one was called. This reminds me of that one where the mages, the wave mages. Yeah, I'm terrible with names, but yeah, it's a good zone overall. I mean, the quests though, I didn't care too much. Like this whole, I get what they were doing with the whole like the tribes, the warring clans, they were fighting each other for land, and for the most part there was a peace treaty, except for that the story itself was good, where the son has taken over the father's leadership position and essentially has made his tribe go rogue. So they go against the pact that everyone else has agreed upon. If I remember this correctly, it's been a little bit now, but that in itself was fine. But that's the overarching story. But each individual character I felt lacked the substance, and that not to be. I feel bad saying any of this stuff because people, even the worst film or television show or book you've read, is still someone poured generally their heart and soul into, and it feels bad to crap on someone's hard work. So it's still a very respectable game and zone and everything else, but I just felt that compared to what I saw previously in the first zone, while this overarching story itself was fantastic, the individual characters felt one-dimensional. I didn't really care that I was helping them save their village or their tribe or their pack, just because I didn't really identify with the characters. They felt just sort of like NPCs guiding me from one quest to the next, and I didn't feel that as much with the previous characters in the previous zone. The turning point, however, which I thought was fascinating, was when at the beginning of the zone, I believe they mention this zone is like the Emerald Dragon Zone. The first zone is the Red Dragon Zone, the Ruby Dragons. This is the Emerald Dragon Zone. The third one, I think, is the Azure Dragon Zone. The fourth one is the Time Dragons. So I was excited because I like the Emerald Dragons, the Emerald Dream, the Druids, the nature. It's all neat. So I was excited when I first saw them mention that, thinking there would be Emerald Dragons. And as I went through the zone, it took a long time for anything Emerald Dragon related to show up. I thought there'd be Emerald Dream scenario or quests or things related to it, but it took a while. But when it finally did, I felt that part of the story carried the zone, and you could say that it carried the zone because the weight of importance that's already been established because of the characters associated with the Green Dragonflight, meaning as soon as you bring in Night Elves and Green Dragonflight and Emerald Dream, that it suddenly, because you already know their backstory, you're like, oh, well, I'm more interested in this now, because it's more difficult to introduce a new character and have you care about them. I understand that. But, I don't know, I just didn't really care. I just didn't really care about these characters until the Emerald Dragons came in, and then I felt the zone redeemed itself a little bit, got more intense. I felt before then, though, there wasn't that intensity, and when I was doing quests where you were like clearing the village of the invaders, it felt fun at times, but it was just lacking something. I don't know what that is, and I apologize. The feedback sort of sucks. I'm saying I don't know what that is that's lacking, but at this part of the quest, it felt a little bit better. But the zones after, which I'll cover in a later video, I felt they really hit it. The same way the first zone hit it. I felt of all the zones, this one was the weakest, which is still, it was a fun zone, but I just felt as I was doing it, I sort of was looking forward to it ending, just so I could get to the next one, because it felt a little bit like a slog, and I wasn't having as much fun. It felt a little grindy at times, and I don't know if that's just because a lot of the quests are just kill this, pick this up, hand this in, clear this space up to fill this bar with progression. I've noticed in some of the other zones, there were a few more gimmicky quests, which sort of shook it up a little bit, made it feel a little cooler. The dragon racing certainly felt fun. I like the dragon racing in all the zones, but yeah, this is, I mean, if I haven't played it all yet, but if we have the opportunity to skip zones, or just if you don't have to do the storyline the whole way up, I may pass on this one, just because now that I've done all the zones, by the time that you are now hearing this video, I've just completed the final zone, I believe, which was the Timekeeper zone, the Bronze Dragonflight. If there's another zone still that I don't know about, that's awesome. But of the 4 zones, I felt that this was the weakest, because the other 3, not that this one was bad, but the other 3 were just so amazing that this one lagged by comparison. So it's not even that this was bad, it's just that those were so unbelievable that this, by comparison, unfortunately, we try not to compare. They say to compare is to despair, but I was just excited for this zone to end. It is what it is. But look, zones that people hate, I love, and vice versa, so it's all personal preference. So I think it's important to have zones, because if I don't like this, then that may mean that other people do like what's here, that they may not like what I like about the other zones. That's why it's important to cater to different audiences, because then you're ensuring everybody's having a good time. I'm not going to not play the game because I don't like the zone. I'll skip it if I have the opportunity. But to make sure it still exists for other people to enjoy, I think it's important. I know it was rambly. I don't know. I'm just trying to put a positive spin on a somewhat mediocre experience. But I'd love to know if you enjoyed the zone. I'd love to know your thoughts, or other zones. Or I still haven't done, to be fair, just a last thing I'm going to say is I haven't done a lot of the side quests here, so maybe there's better character development in that, but I was just doing the main storyline, try to get through the whole main story, because I learned just a moment ago world quests exist, so that'll make it easier. I've been 70 for a little while now, but getting gear from world quests will make it a little bit easier to progress, and then come back and do these side quests to finish up the zones with better gear, with less struggle, with more gold, and all that razzmatazz. But thank you so much for listening, as always. Let me know what you think.